Welcome to the Rugby Obsession Deep Dive. We are jumping straight into the crucible of New Zealand rugby today.
We really are.
Because the state of the All Blacks, even after a season with, decent numbers on paper, is prompting some serious soul-searching.
And our source material today, it centers around one very pointed, very interesting opinion.
Which is?
That Bristol Bears boss, Pat Lam, is the coach who can solve their problems.
Yeah.
But more than that, he's the man uniquely qualified to bring them back to their core identity.
Okay, so that's the mission for this deep dive. A positive look at the argument that Lam is the fit the All Blacks desperately need right now.
Exactly. The source is this really authoritative opinion piece arguing that he should replace the current coach, Scott Robertson.
And you can really feel the tension in New Zealand rugby from Robertson's own words. He called the end of some review an interrogation.
An interrogation, right from the top to the bottom. That word tells you everything.
It really does, because on paper, 2025 looked respectable, 10 wins and 13 tests. But our source makes it brutally clear that this record was masking some really fundamental flaws.
Things like inconsistency, defensive leaks, discipline issues, and those awful second-half collapses.
Those collapses were just devastating to watch.
It wasn't the numbers that mattered. It was how they looked doing it. They were shipping late tries, looking less like a cohesive team and more like a group of brilliant individuals who just forgot how to think together under pressure.
So the proposition is clear. Pat Lam is the answer.
Right. And not as some foreign solution, but because his philosophy creates rugby. That is, and this is the key phrase, recognizably New Zealand rugby.
If you're as invested in the strategy and the culture of global rugby as we are, and you want this kind of deep analysis, you really need to subscribe to Rugby Obsession right now. Don't miss out. Okay, so let's delve deeper into this context of crisis. The pressure on Robertson is obviously intense.
Oh, immense.
What were the specific critiques driving this feeling that the All Blacks have, lost their way?
Well, the criticism is very specific, which is probably why it hurt so much over there.
Right.
I mean, you look at that November tour. Conceding late scores to teams they should have put away. The source points to this tendency to get conservative when they're ahead.
Almost fearful.
Exactly. Fearful of expressing themselves. It's not a talent problem. It's an identity problem. They seem uncertain about what kind of rugby they're even supposed to be playing.
So Robertson is still in the job, but the feeling is he's on notice.
He's on notice. And a big part of the criticism aimed at him from the sources is this fear that he's abandoning the traditional New Zealand style.
And what does that mean specifically?
The core complaint is that he's copying the Springboks.
Okay.
For our listeners, that means a game plan that leans heavily on set-piece dominance, a very rigid defensive system, and probably the most grating thing for Kiwis, a reliance on box kicks and high balls.
Which is totally the opposite of the All Blacks' high-tempo running game.
Completely. And look, the Springboks have had huge success with it, right? But New Zealand fans, they don't want a copy. They want the original.
The source even quotes Murray Mexted saying the team has been buggering around for 2 years.
And that it has tarnished our image. That's incredibly damning language from a legend like him.
It signals a conceptual failure, doesn't it? When critics say the team is too robotic, it's about the coaching philosophy.
It is. They're saying the current method has fundamentally disconnected from the lost principle of New Zealand rugby, which is trust.
Trust. How does the source define that in a rugby context?
It's about trusting player instinct, prioritizing skill over rigid control. It's the idea that the game belongs to the people on the field rather than the people in the box.
That's a huge philosophical line in the sand.
It is. The fear is they're being overcoached,
Yeah.
forcing these complex patterns that just stifle the natural brilliance of a player like Artie Savea.
Which sets the stage perfectly for the alternative. Let's talk about Pat Lam's credentials. He's been out of the New Zealand system for a while.
But his background is precisely why the source presents him as the perfect fit.
His dual heritage.
Absolutely central to the whole argument. He was born in Auckland, came up through the provincial system, but he played for Samoa internationally.
So he gets both sides.
He gets the professional domestic structure, and he has this deep connection to what the source calls Samoan collectivism. He understands structure, but also cultural expression.
And his success, it wasn't built on having the biggest checkbook. It started, most famously, at Connacht.
Oh, the Connacht story is the definitive example. It really is.
Tell us about it.
In 2016, he took Connacht, a team with the smallest budget in the league, always seen as the underdog, and he won the whole thing.
Beating teams like Leinster and Munster.
Beating the Irish Giants, resource-rich Titans. And it wasn't a fluke. It wasn't just, a motivational speech.
It was systematic.
Completely.
Go.
The source stresses it was systematic development. He didn't just tell them to run hard. He taught them the principles of space and pressure. They owned the game plan.
And he's doing something similar now at Bristol, isn't he?
He is. Building a side in the Premiership that consistently competes, plays this really watchable and effective brand of rugby, again, on a smaller budget than the big boys.
But the critics will have their counter-arguments.
Of course. And the source brings them up. They'll say, he's been out of New Zealand too long, or he doesn't have international experience.
How does the source rebut that?
Well, first, his time away has given him perspective on what New Zealand has lost. Second, on international experience. Neither did Graham Henry before he took the job.
That's a very good point.
And the fact that he's committed to Bristol, that he turned down the Wales job, is actually seen as a positive. It shows loyalty, a deep cultural value. And look, if you're finding this kind of deep dive compelling, and you want us to keep dissecting these huge stories in rugby, please just take a second to subscribe to Rugby Obsession. It really helps.
Let's get into the core of it now, the philosophy, the difference between being robotic and, well, actually reading the game.
This is the heart of the matter. Lamb's rugby is about understanding space and using the ball, not the robotic execution of patterns.
Right. So his players are taught to read cues from the defense.
And make a decision right there, in the moment, based on what they see, not based on what the coach told them to do on Tuesday.
That's so different from a lot of modern coaching. He's teaching the principles behind the attack, not just the pattern itself.
And that adaptability is everything in a test match. Lamb's belief is simple. Skilled players who understand why they're doing something will always outperform skilled players who are simply following instructions.
So when a plan breaks down, which it always does...
These players don't panic. They just revert to the principle. Secure the ball, find the new space, and go.
And tactically, that comes out as high-tempo handling.
Precisely. It's all designed to move the ball faster than a defense can reset. You force them into making decisions under pressure. It's about manipulating the opponent with speed of thought, not just trying to bash through them.
And here's where it all ties together, the cultural synchronization. The source argues his approach aligns perfectly with expression within structure. What does that mean for the All Blacks?
It means the framework is there to stop chaos, but it doesn't suffocate individual brilliance. It allows for that spontaneous offload, that crazy running line, the stuff that has always defined New Zealand rugby.
The moments of magic.
The magic, exactly. It looks high risk, but it's not, because the whole team understands the principle behind the play.
And this is so vital because the All Black squad is overwhelmingly Maori and Pasifika.
Yes, and that expressive, communal style of play is in their DNA. The argument is that the current coaching is disconnected from that cultural energy. Lamb, with his heritage, he gets it instinctively.
It reminds you of the greats, doesn't it?
Well, absolutely. Think of Christian Cullen hitting a gap that wasn't there.
Or Tana Umaga's offloads.
Exactly. Or Richie McCaw just knowing where the ball was going to be 3 phases ahead of everyone else. None of that came from a playbook.
It came from deep understanding.
And trust. Trust in the player's instinct.
Yeah.
That is what seems to be missing right now. Lamb's whole career is about building that trust.
So to wrap this deep dive up, the big takeaway is that the All Blacks don't need some radical reinvention.
No, they just need to get their culture and their tactics back in sync.
And Lamb's philosophy, the source says, looks like New Zealand rugby when it is confident rather than anxious.
That's the perfect summary. It's high skill, high intelligence rugby. And while he's contracted in Bristol, the point is, if New Zealand rugby is serious about its long-term direction, the answer is already out there. He's coaching the kind of rugby the All Blacks should never have stopped playing.
A powerful thought to end on. And now we want to hear from you. What stood out to you in this analysis? Do you agree that Pat Lam is the right fit for the All Blacks' long-term identity? Let us know your thoughts and opinions. Don't forget to subscribe to Rugby Obsession for all our latest deep dives. Thank you for listening to the Rugby Obsession Deep Dive, and we will look forward to you listening to our next episode.